Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I've given Seiko's Hardlex mineral crystal a number of maulings over the years. Well-deserved maulings if you ask me. It's basic mineral crystal. Just because you call it Hardlex doesn't mean to say it's actually hard. And I have scratched pretty much every bit of it that I have run long term. And I must admit, I was a bit disappointed when I ordered my beautiful but used Seiko Cocktail Time Hojicha limited edition straight from Japan, but it arrived with a number of prominent scratches on the Hardlex. And I have received several emails from one very insistent South African called Kobus telling me all I needed to polish Hardlex was some diamond polish and a Dremel. So I bought some diamond polish and a Dremel. You know what's about to happen. Wish me luck. Let's flip the camera and get on with it. Okay, so let's have a look at what we are working with today then, starting with this bag of diamond polish in syringes. I wonder where all of this originated from. Answers on a postcard, please. I will tell you how much these cost me at the back end of the video. I'll also tell you how much this Dremel 200 cost me. I'm not a big home improvement / DIY guy. I'm not afraid to admit therefore that this is my first Dremel, so please forgive me if I use it incorrectly. And I thought that as this was my first time using it, I would buy this cleaning and polishing kit as well. I've absolutely no idea how much or how little of it I am going to need though. I found this attractive lime green masking tape in the garage yesterday, which will do the job nicely of protecting the case, leaving only the crystal exposed. And I also have a set of instructions. Kobus was kind enough to leave very detailed step-by-step instructions as to how mineral crystal could indeed be polished. Now, this is based on a dive watch. He refers to the bezel on a couple of occasions here. I don't need to worry about that, but like I said, I am going to mask it up properly to prevent damage to the case. And finally, of course, I have the Seiko. Now, the footage I showed you in the intro was shot in 1080. This footage is shot in 4K. That means the scratches are going to look worse, but if I do manage to successfully repair them, it's going to look even better. You can see there are a series of scratches in the middle of and just to the right side of the brand logo. Plus, there are what appear to be shallower scratches from roughly 8 to 10 on the edge of the crystal on the left. Let's see how they look in 5 minutes of your time. Okay, let's take it off the leather strap. Thank you Seiko for providing quick release spring bars. This may be a dressy watch, but it does have 50 meters of water resistance, so I may well give it a bit of a bath at the end of today's process. But I am determined to make a bloody good job of masking off that high poly silver bezel. It has some scratches on it already, but the last thing I want to do is clean up the scratches on the crystal whilst making more scratches on the bezel. And don't worry, I did get an adult to help me with the scissors. So this is what it looks like fully masked. I went around it twice, making sure there was no high polished bezel on display, just neon lime masking tape. But what to do with these syringes of diamond polish then? They're all different colours, signifying different grades. I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark here and guess that the higher the number, the rougher the paste. So after stacking them left to right, it seems they go from 0.5 up to 10. It seems a good idea to me, therefore, to start with the one labelled 5, pretty much in the middle of the range. I'll see how I go with that. I can always go rougher or smoother, depending on my success or lack thereof. Like I said, I bought this additional polishing / cleaning kit because it seemed like the sensible thing to do. I'm thinking maybe this large looking buffer initially, and then maybe finishing the job with one of these smaller pads. Unless something goes horribly wrong, it looks like I'm going to have plenty left over for next time. But before I even begin, it looks like I've hit my first snag. Kobus said use the medium setting on the Dremel, and this Dremel 200 only has low and high. What am I going to do? Yeah, okay, I'll start low and then go high. So I began by applying a little bit of the paste directly to the affected areas. I'm going to focus on the main scratches near the brand logo initially and then do the one on the crystal's edge a bit later on. I'm trying to be sensible. I did indeed start with the Dremel on the low setting, which I quickly realised was thoroughly underwhelming, so I cranked it up to high. You can see in real time, by the way, how long this entire process is taking. It ended up being about an hour or so end to end, but I was in absolutely no rush whatsoever, and I took plenty of opportunities to wipe the crystal clean, inspect progress, and then start again with some fresh diamond polish. After maybe 10 minutes though, I got impatient and decided to step it up a notch by moving to the 7 grade paste rather than the 5 grade. I must admit the Dremel is quite fun to use, though I was slightly disturbed by the puffs of smoke that came off it occasionally. I guess it was just some of the paste turning to steam. At least I hope that's what it was. So I continued to blast it with the large head, initially buffing with the scratch, which ran vertically down the crystal, before I then decided I would try buffing across the scratch, so horizontally, to see if that was more effective. Maybe 20-25 minutes after I started, after cleaning off the paste to have a good look, I thought it was probably 80-90% of the way there. The main scratch had almost disappeared, so I turned my attention to the scratches on the left hand side of the crystal. They weren't nearly as deep, so they buffed out really rather quickly. So I then took it back down a notch. I put the small finishing buffer pad on the Dremel and switched to the finest of the paste, the 0.5, which was definitely far more watery than the others. I gave the affected areas and the dial in general a bit of a finish, a light buff throughout, and after a final inspection, I decided that was me done for the day in terms of the Dremel anyway. What do you think? Can you still see the scratch? Remember, it wasn't fantastic, was it? There were a couple of vertical gouges, one just below the I in Seiko and one to the right of the O in Seiko, neither of which is visible anymore. If I'm being really pedantic, and let's face it, I'm a pedant, so I am going to be really pedantic, there is still a slight groove to the crystal next to the O. You can see it here as I tilt the watch back and forth, but it looks far more like a tiny imperfection in the glass itself than a man-made scratch, and it's barely noticeable with the naked eye. Perhaps I could have pushed on for another 10 minutes and gotten rid of it entirely, but I decided that to all intents and purposes, this was going to be good enough for me. So after wiping down my precious piece of wood, I set about removing the masking tape, which of course didn't take more than a few seconds. There were a few bits of blue paste on the bezel and on my fingers, so I then gave both a wash. So there we go, all done, all clean, time to put the strap back on. Now I'm not a fan of Seiko's back to front deployance, so I wear mine in the traditional direction, tail at the back, meaning the hardware is upside down, but I'm sure I'll cope. Alright, let's wrap this one up. There is good news and there is bad news. The good news is I am absolutely delighted with how it turned out. Thank you Dremel, thank you Kobus. I reckon I got maybe 95% of the scratches out. If I'd pushed on, perhaps I could have cleared up the other 5%, but honestly, it's barely noticeable. I just don't care. I'm now really pleased that this beautiful Seiko looks beautiful once more. The bad news is that because I didn't own a Dremel, that cost me $120 plus another $27 for the diamond polish, so this has not been a cheap exercise at all. $147 and an hour of my time to fix something that arguably I shouldn't have needed to fix in the first place. Which brings me on to the real bad news today. As much as this watch looks beautiful again, there is nothing to say I won't wear it this afternoon, catch it on a door jamb, put another big scratch on the crystal, and have to do all of this again tomorrow. So, can Seiko's Hardlex be repaired? Yes, it most definitely can. Does it still suck? Yes, it most definitely does. I would happily have paid another $100 for this to be a piece of sapphire rather than a piece of mineral crystal, and I reckon 85% of the people watching this video will feel the same way. But unfortunately, we just don't get that choice. Thanks for making it all the way to the back end of the video. While you're here, why not watch my review of the Seiko Hojicha or one of the numerous sapphire crystal mods that I have done on Seikos in the past. I'll see you again in the next one.